Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we are unpacking an absolutely fascinating case study in workplace justice, pulled directly from the archives of EP 110. We're looking closely at a scenario known as the slide master that carried her name. And honestly, the core mystery here is just brilliant. We're going to see how a seemingly ordinary, totally quiet digital record flat out refused to stay polite and instead completely exposed a major incident of corporate credit theft. If you've ever had someone else take the credit for your hard work, well, this explainer is going to be incredibly satisfying. So let's dive right into this investigation by focusing on a really powerful rule of digital architecture. It pretty much sets the stage for our entire story. The visible slide may look clean, but the master remembers who built the room it stands in. Think about it. In the modern workplace, the surface level of a project can easily be manipulated by whoever happens to be presenting it, right? People can change titles, they swap out names, they stand up in a meeting and claim ownership. But the foundational architecture, the master slides, the document properties, the metadata, yeah, that stuff has a very, very long memory. All right, let's jump into section 1, the hidden slide master. Picture this. It starts as just an ordinary morning file. And that's the thing, right? The dangerous documents, they never actually look dangerous at first glance. They just look like standard, boring administrative work. But hidden deep within this specific file was a secret. It was a slide master that was still carrying the initials of a quiet builder named Sofia Lane, buried way down under the template properties. Now, Maya Carter, a strategy lead who just has this sharp eye for systems, she immediately recognized the pattern. She realized that this small, easily overlooked little detail, it wasn't a typo. It was a definitive digital footprint of stolen labor. Moving right along to section 2, the evasive explanation. So here we see a pretty stark contrast. On one side, you have the corporate excuse. This is provided by Renee, who smoothly claims, oh, template properties are just automatically inherited by the software. Basically, she's calling it a technical glitch that doesn't actually prove any meaningful contribution to the presentation deck. But the reality? It's quite different. Maya and Sofia, they aren't buying this polished excuse for a second. They suspect intentional, highly calculated credit theft of the entire deck's underlying architecture. And the tension here is classic office politics, a room full of professionals speaking very politely while the truth slowly sucks the air out of every single excuse. Which brings us to section 3, evidence comparison. This is where we stop arguing with opinions and start stacking facts. Now, Sofia Lane isn't new to these kinds of corporate games, but her tactic here is brilliant because she remains perfectly calm. She asks the exact, specific operational questions that powerful people usually try to skip right over. She says, can we define who changed it, when it changed, and who approved the change? You see, panic always gives powerful people the time and chaos they need to clean up their tracks. But calmness traps them because it makes the historical record speak so much louder. And this perfectly illustrates Maya Carter's glass wall map approach. She literally maps it out: the object, the owner, the timestamp, and the beneficiary. Notice how none of these individual data points look all that dramatic by themselves. I mean, an 8:14 p.m. original edit versus a 9:02 a.m. polished deck? Okay, but together, laid out visually like this evidence comparison, they build an undeniable path of intent. It instantly stops being a vague suspicion and starts looking exactly like calculated design. Of course, when the facts start stacking up, the toxic elements of an office are going to push back. But office pressure rarely arrives as a direct, yelling-in-your-face threat. Instead, it sneaks in as polite mentorship meant to silence the victim. Renee actually pulls Sofia aside to give her some career advice, warning her that reopening these credit issues is just going to make her look quote-unquote difficult. It's such a classic maneuver, framing the pursuit of truth as a personal failing just to preserve a comfortable lie. But let's look at the background records brought in by Nina, the executive assistant. People so often treat administrative tasks as invisible, right? But Nina proves that invisible work actually sees everything. She provides calendar exports, saved meeting drafts, forwarding trails. All this context takes that one supposedly isolated mistake and places it directly inside a much larger, undeniably behavioral pattern. Nina basically brought the receipts. And the absolute crucial point here is Jordan's IT audit trail. Jordan is an IT audit specialist, and he doesn't use fancy cinematic hacking visuals. He just uses pure, unarguable sequence. Step 1, the file was opened. Step 2, the owner field was changed. Step 3, the access path was deliberately narrowed. By relying purely on this raw IT sequence, Renee's official story of automatic inheritance becomes mathematically impossible to keep alive. The system literally doesn't lie. All right, Section 4, Decisive Evidence, the real turning point of our explainer. So Aisha, an analyst with fresh eyes, asks the ultimate room-shrinking question to the group. Who benefits if this stays classified as a harmless process issue? Office lies can survive for a very long time when the harm is kept vague and nobody points fingers. But the second the beneficiary is given a specific name out loud, the lie completely collapses. The answer wasn't abstract anymore. Everyone in that room knew the answer was Renee. And the dramatic tension peaks right here. I want you to really picture the total silence in the room at this exact moment. Aisha doesn't yell, she doesn't make a big, dramatic speech. She simply clicks her mouse. Aisha opens the master layout history. This is the file's absolute deepest revision history, the exact place where the fundamental architecture of the presentation is permanently recorded. And boom, there it is, the undeniable proof that absolutely destroys Renee's excuse, the smoking gun discovery. Right inside that master layout history, Aisha finds Sofia's exact slide structure, fully intact. She finds Sofia's specific naming conventions, and most importantly, she finds the dated original design notes that definitively prove authorship. One page closes one excuse, one timestamp closes another. The truth doesn't need to be loud when the evidence is this incredibly specific. Maya Carter closes the trap flawlessly. She just looks at the room and says, I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust the record you created. Wow, this is such a powerful leadership moment. She doesn't rely on emotion or begging. She simply forces everyone in the room to look at the unchangeable record. Order and facts do all of the heavy lifting for her. Which leads us to our final chapter, Section 5, Systemic Protection. Writing the lesson into the company. You see, a toxic system survives on private repairs. If managers just quietly apologize in a private email, well, nobody else learns where the trap was, and the next employee remains totally exposed. Maya insists that because this credit theft affected Sofia's reputation publicly, the correction absolutely cannot be a quiet, comfortable email. The correction has to be public enough to fully restore Sofia's name out loud. And here is how you build true workplace justice. Linda, the HR manager, she institutes a systemic repair. They now add hidden template ownership to all project records, and they require digital footprints for any design work that affects strategic credit. Because true justice isn't just about punishing the wrongdoer, it's about writing the lesson directly into the workflow. By actually changing the architectural workflow, they protect the quiet builders moving forward, making the next attempted theft significantly harder to pull off. Which brings us to the end of today's analysis, and I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question. How does your own workplace handle invisible labor and ensure quiet builders get their rightful credit? Take a second to think about your own digital footprint. Are the systems of credit in your office built on who is the loudest and most visible, or on the actual architectural record of the work? The visible slide may look clean, folks, but remember, the master always remembers who built the room. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.